how do you prevent from confusing anxiety with these premonitions, right?
That's
Like
so
one of
good.
the
That's such a good question.
well, one of the biggest things, right? Like people will confuse, like, okay, the other day, right? Let's talk about this.
Such a
The
good
other
question.
day, I was getting like I was thinking of going for a bike ride, right? The other day, and I was getting such anxiety about it, right? And I was like, what? This never happens. Why? And in my mind, I'm like, is this where I get hit by a car and die? Right? Like,
Yeah.
is this where I lose my family? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is this where I get in a track? Like, what bad thing is going to happen? Because I have this crazy anxiety. And I went on the bike ride and nothing bad happened. It was
Yeah.
just a normal ride, right? But like, why? If I would have trusted my like, because there has been times like in my mind where I'm like I had a feeling where like I'm not gonna ride today, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I trusted that feeling of like I think something bad's gonna happen. I'm not gonna do it. You
Yeah.
know, like there has been times that I've done that, but then there's times where like get this anxiety, and then I'm like, should I not go? And then I still go, and everything's fine. Like, how do you know? It's tough to tell when it's just anxiety because anxiety is
Yes.
real, right? And like you don't always have to trust it. Sometimes it's just there, but
Yeah.
anxiety is a tool that you need to use. But how can you tell the difference, or what signs do you look for to tell the difference between a premonition and anxiety?
That's dude, that's like the best question you could have ever asked. I mean that for real because I will say that before I get into that real quick, I
Hold on,
heard this really
quick,
cool.
Josh. Was it a premonition that I asked that question? Do you
I
think?
didn't see that one coming today.
Yeah.
So
All
I'll
right, sorry.
say
Go ahead. Go ahead.
one a cool thing that just made me think real quick, and I'll get into that is you ever hear like the bird burnt toast theory or leaving your keys theory is where
That
your
where you have the
angels and
stroke?
spirit guides, like if you ever burnt toast before you were going out of the house and you're like, oh, I got to make another piece of toast before I go, or you leave your keys and you go back, it's because your angels did that on purpose so that you didn't get in some kind of accident or you didn't do this. And
Yeah.
if you would have left a minute before, you could have been in that accident. So
Yeah.
that's just a cool thing I was thinking about. But that's such a good question because I don't want to pretend I know every answer. And I'll say that's what the inner reflectiveness does when you start to self-reflect, when you start to trust that there's a higher presence with you that's guiding you. And when you dive deeper into that, you learn the difference between the two. And like for me, one thing to clear anxiety, and I promise you this because they're in the same part of the brain. Anytime you're having anxiety, think immediately start thinking about what you're grateful for and mean it. They're in the same part of the brain. You can't have anxiety and you can't have gratitude at the same time. So if you start to be grateful for something, the anxiety will go away. I promise you this. Next time you have anxiety, immediately get deep into like, I'm grateful for my wife, I'm grateful for my kids, and watch the anxiety go away. Okay. So that's one thing that will
Yeah.
help.
That's
But
a great call.
dude, and not only that, it's a Harvard-based study proving that anxiety and gratitude are at the same spot. They can't coexist together. So try that next time. So that's one thing.
That's phenomenal.
I know, right? So that'll help your
Yeah.
anxiety. But two is, and again, I can't give every answer because I don't know them all, but what you start to see is it's a combination of your awareness of why you're being anxious because what we live in right now, we're in a really fear-based society. Think about everything
Yeah.
you do. You like you're awesome because like you'll go to work, but you'll do stuff for you. A lot of people will go to work for 8 hours for someone else, but not do something for 2 hours for themselves to like start a business or do something. They'll go to work at 9 a.m., clock out at 5, but they won't spend 2 hours on a podcast like you do or 5 hours to try and get out of that situation. But we're in this conformist fear-based society where everything gives us anxiety. Everything is poisoning us. We have all these problems. So it's building up because there's nowhere to release it to. And when you start, that's a great, when I was saying the question, when you start to let go of fear of things is what's holding most people back from everything. When I stop being so fearful about things and start trusting, I know what I'm doing. I know what's best for me. I know to not drink. I know to be kinder to
Mhm.
people. I know to not drive 75 miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour, like small things. But when you let go of fear and you start to trust yourself, you will understand that, like, oh, I'm building on this intuition. It's not, sometimes you have really big glimpses of it no matter who you are because it was meant for you. But when you start to build your awareness, when you start to build your consciousness and you trust yourself, and you let go of fear. Who cares what happens? Who cares about like anything? Like when you're fearful about all these things, it holds you back from being yourself. So when you let go of them completely and you surrender to the flow of the universe, you will just be guided by this GPS internal system that is meant to get you to where you're supposed to be. But again, I don't know every answer. I'll just say when you're having anxiety, start with the gratitude and watch it drift away. And you will see when you do it repetitively, you're programming your subconscious mind to no longer be anxious.